Hedge relationship. So what you do typically is you basically designate all your hedges into relationships. Now you have to create a documentation. Every hedge that you do, you have to recognize the hedged item, which is the underlying exposure that you have, and based on which you then designate the hedge instrument, and then you create a hedge relationship number. Every hedge should have a relationship number. Of course, it's not simple. There are a lot of nuances here, right? What is the hedge relationship? What is a hedged item? Okay. What is the hedge risk that you are doing? You have to be very clear on this, right? And then there are other aspects. For example, if you do a forward and the cash flow that you are hedging the forward with, that cash flow gets postponed, then what? Then how do you account for it? So you have to document all of that, and you have to maintain the hedge relationship in a seamless fashion. Okay, that's a major task. Second is prospective testing. Basically, standing today, before you do the hedge, you have to be able to justify why you think this particular hedge will be a good hedge or an effective hedge for the strategy that you're adapting. Now, for example, if you do an option structure, why do you think, and what is the intent of the option structure, and in that particular range in which the option structure is going to work, why do you think this particular hedge is going to be effective? You have to document it. Typically, as long as the dates match, as long as the underlying match, this is not that difficult a step. And then third is retrospective testing, that every quarter you have to basically prove that from the inception of the trade till that quarter end, what has been the change in the underlying change in the derivative hedge that you have done, and what has been the change in the underlying hedged item, and match those two and ensure that and calculate the effectiveness, the fair value change in the underlying hedge versus the underlying exposure. If that effectiveness is 100%, then you say that this hedge is 100% effective. If the effectiveness is 90%, then the 90% effective, and so on. So the effectiveness testing has to be done every quarter. Okay. Now, the effectiveness testing is not as simple. It is not that complicated, but it's also not simple. Depending on the instrument, there are nuances here in terms of, are you looking at, intrinsic value, time value for options, and so on. Hypothetical derivative has to be created based on which you do the hedge effectiveness, and so on. So there are these steps, but, right now we are not getting into the details of this at a very high level. These are the steps that you have to undertake. Let's say you are able to prove that this particular hedge is effective. Then what happens, right? What happens to the actual treatment? When the hedge becomes effective, you have to